Every day we make thousands of decisions, some small, some life-changing. But when faced with an important choice, how do we know if we're following our intuition or simply overthinking? Are the signs we see truly guiding us, or are we manifesting them out of fear, desire, or expectation? This is where the conflict between intuition and overthinking begins, and for many people this confusion can make it difficult to trust themselves. This series will take you through 5 of the most common challenges people face when trying to separate intuition from overthinking. You'll learn how to recognize when your gut feeling is leading you in the right direction versus when your mind is creating patterns that don't truly exist. More importantly, you'll discover practical strategies to strengthen your intuitive awareness while quieting the noise of overanalysis. The 5 topics we'll cover are: 1. The fear of getting it wrong. How doubt and anxiety make us second-guess what we already know deep down. 2. Are you receiving signs or just looking for them? The difference between true intuitive signals and confirmation bias. Emotional influence. When feelings distort intuition. Why strong emotions can cloud our judgment and make overthinking feel like intuition. The role of logic versus intuition. Understanding how to balance logical reasoning with instinctive knowing without falling into overthinking. 5. Strengthening your intuition while quieting the mind. Practical techniques to build trust in your inner guidance while reducing self-doubt and mental noise. Now let's begin with the first challenge. The fear of getting it wrong. The fear of getting it wrongly. Of the biggest reasons people struggle to trust their intuition is fear. Fear of making the wrong choice, fear of wasting time, fear of regret. And fear, by its very nature, fuels overthinking. When we fear getting it wrong, we second-guess even the most obvious decisions. We analyze every possible outcome, revisit past mistakes, and seek validation from others. But the more we analyze, the more disconnected we become from our intuition. Intuition thrives in clarity, not chaos. But when fear takes over, it distorts that clarity, making us feel like we don't actually know what to do. So how do we know if fear is making us overthink, or if our intuition is genuinely warning us? The key difference is in how the message feels. Intuition is subtle, direct, and calm. It doesn't create anxiety, it provides clarity. It may not always be what we want to hear, but it doesn't create excessive mental chatter. Fear, on the other hand, is loud. It feels urgent, heavy, and often chaotic. If your thoughts are running in circles, creating more confusion instead of direction, chances are fear is in control. Another sign of overthinking driven by fear is seeking constant reassurance. If you find yourself repeatedly asking others for advice, rereading messages, or trying to figure out if you're making the right choice, you are likely overanalyzing. True intuition doesn't require external validation, it simply knows. To overcome this, practice what I call the pause test. When you feel overwhelmed by a decision, take a deep breath and pause. Close your eyes and ask yourself, if I had to decide right now with no outside opinions, what feels right? The answer that comes in those quiet moments is usually your intuition speaking. Overthinking, however, will immediately follow with what ifs and doubts. Another powerful technique is writing down your first instinct before your mind has time to overanalyze. The first answer that comes to you before logic jumps in is often the one you truly believe. A useful way to train your intuitive trust is by reflecting on past decisions where you knew the answer deep down, but doubted yourself. What happened? More often than not, you'll realize that your first instinct was correct. Recognizing this pattern builds confidence in your ability to trust your intuition. Another thing to consider is that intuition doesn't just show up in dramatic ways. It's often found in small, everyday choices. Start practicing with low-stakes decisions, like picking a meal or choosing a route home, and notice how often your first instinct turns out to be right. The more you strengthen your intuitive muscle in small ways, the more you'll trust it when big decisions arise. If you struggle with letting go of fear, practice grounding techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or even a short walk in nature. These methods help quiet the mind and create space for intuition to surface without interference from fear-based overanalysis. Fear-driven overthinking can make us feel lost, but when we slow down and listen, our intuition has always been there, waiting. The challenge is not in finding our intuition, it's in learning to trust it. And with practice, you'll find that your inner voice was right all along. Are you receiving signs or just looking for them? One of the biggest challenges in understanding intuition is knowing whether we are truly receiving signs from the universe or if we are simply looking for patterns and meaning where there may be none. This distinction is crucial because while intuition is a powerful guiding force, confirmation bias can easily trick us into believing that we are being led in a certain direction when, in reality, we are manifesting the outcome by focusing on it too much. When we are desperate for an answer, our mind becomes hyper-aware of anything that might confirm what we already want or fear. This is how confirmation bias works. It makes us notice patterns that support our expectations while ignoring or dismissing anything that contradicts them. For example, if you are debating whether to take a new job and keep seeing numbers that you associate with good luck, you might believe the universe is pushing you to accept the offer. But is it really, or is it that your heightened awareness is making you notice those numbers more than usual? True intuitive signs have a different quality. They tend to arrive unexpectedly, often when you are not actively looking for them. They feel natural and meaningful rather than forced or sought after. Intuition speaks in a language that feels effortless. It doesn't require you to constantly search for validation. So how do you differentiate real signs from self-imposed manifestations? The answer lies in detachment. When something is truly meant for you, the signs will appear even when you are not obsessively searching for them. On the other hand, if you are fixated on an outcome and constantly looking for reassurance, your mind will create connections that might not be real. One way to test this is to pause your search for signs and see if they still appear naturally. If you stop focusing on a particular number, symbol, or coincidence, does it still come into your awareness? If so, it's more likely to be genuine guidance rather than self-imposed meaning. Another method is to ask for a specific, unexpected sign. Instead of looking for vague symbols, ask for a clear, unusual confirmation, something that wouldn't normally show up in your daily routine. If it appears in an undeniable way, your intuition is likely at play. The best way to strengthen your ability to receive true intuitive guidance is to cultivate stillness. Intuition speaks most clearly when the mind is calm and open, not when it is frantically searching for meaning. Practice meditation, mindfulness, or even simple quiet reflection to create space for intuition to emerge naturally. When you stop chasing signs, the ones that truly matter will reveal themselves effortlessly. Emotional influence. When feelings distort intuition, our emotions are powerful, and while they can sometimes align with intuition, they can also cloud it. The stronger an emotion is, whether it's excitement, fear, love, or anger, the harder it is to distinguish between what we feel and what we know. When emotions take control, they can make overthinking feel like intuition, leading us down paths that might not actually be in our best interest. For example, when you really want something, a relationship, a job, a big opportunity, you may feel an overwhelming pull toward it and mistake that intense desire for intuition. But intuition is not desperate. It does not push or pull forcefully. It simply nudges you in a direction with clarity and ease. When you feel an extreme emotional charge behind a decision, it's important to pause and ask, is this my intuition? Or is this my emotional attachment? Similarly, fear can disguise itself as intuition. Sometimes we feel an internal resistance and assume that it's our gut warning us not to move forward. But in reality, it might just be fear of the unknown. Intuition does not create panic. It provides quiet certainty. If you find yourself feeling anxious, second-guessing, or needing to justify your decision repeatedly, that's likely overthinking. fueled by emotion rather than intuition guiding you. So how can we separate intuition from emotionally charged thinking? The best way is to create space between feeling and acting. When you experience a strong emotion tied to a decision, take a step back. Instead of reacting immediately, give yourself time to process. This could mean waiting a day before making a big choice, journaling to explore your thoughts, or simply sitting in stillness to observe what your deeper knowing is telling you beyond the emotional noise. A powerful exercise is imagining both outcomes without the emotional weight. Visualize yourself choosing one option and then the other. Instead of focusing on how excited or scared you feel, pay attention to which choice gives you a sense of grounded peace. True intuition feels like quiet assurance, while emotionally driven overthinking feels like mental noise. Another technique is to reflect on past decisions where emotions influenced you. Were there times when you mistook emotional intensity for intuition? What was the outcome? Recognizing these patterns will help you refine your ability to discern true intuition from emotionally charged thoughts. At its core, intuition is a calm knowing. It does not beg for attention, it does not force urgency, and it does not feed anxiety. By learning to quiet emotional extremes, you create a clear space for intuition to guide you authentically. The role of logic versus intuition. For many people, the battle between logic and intuition is one of the biggest internal struggles they face. Logic is structured, predictable, and based on evidence, while intuition is instinctive, unexplainable, and often feels abstract. The challenge is knowing when to rely on logic and when to trust your gut. If you lean too heavily on logic, you may dismiss intuitive insights as irrational. If you depend too much on intuition, you might ignore critical information that could prevent mistakes. So how do you strike the right balance between logic and intuition? The key lies in understanding their roles. Logic is essential for analyzing facts, evaluating risks, and making decisions that require rational thought. Intuition, on the other hand, shines in situations where there isn't enough data, when speed is required, or when emotions play a significant role. In other words, logic tells you what makes sense, while intuition tells you what feels right. One way to determine whether you should rely on logic or intuition is to evaluate the nature of the decision. If you are making a decision based on measurable data, like financial planning, career moves, or medical choices, logic should take the lead. However, if you are choosing between opportunities that seem equally viable on paper, but one feels more aligned with your values, that's when intuition should guide you. Another method is using logic to cross-check intuition. When you get an intuitive nudge, take a step back and ask, does this make sense based on what I know? If your intuition aligns with logic, that's a strong indicator that you're on the right path. If it contradicts logic, ask yourself whether you might be acting out of fear, impulse, or emotional bias. To strengthen both faculties, practice making small decisions using both logic and intuition. For example, when deciding what to eat, use intuition to sense what your body needs and logic to determine whether it's a healthy choice. Over time, the more you integrate both approaches, the more naturally they will work together in bigger decisions. Ultimately, the most powerful decision-making happens when logic and intuition work as partners rather than adversaries. By honoring both, you gain the ability to make confident choices that are both smart and deeply aligned with who you are, strengthening your intuition. While quieting the mind, the final step in mastering the balance between intuition and overthinking is learning how to strengthen your intuition while reducing mental noise. In a world filled with distractions, it's easy for intuitive signals to get lost in the clutter of overanalysis, doubts, and external influences. The good news is intuition is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. One of the best ways to sharpen intuition is to practice mindfulness and stillness. Intuition often speaks in whispers, so if your mind is always busy, you might miss its guidance. Meditation, deep breathing, and even activities like walking in nature can create the mental space needed to hear your inner voice more clearly. Another effective method is journaling intuitive experiences. Each time you have a strong gut feeling, whether it's about a person, an opportunity, or a decision, write it down. Later, reflect on how accurate your intuition was. Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns, reinforcing your ability to trust your instincts. To reduce overthinking, try setting decision-making boundaries. If you find yourself stuck in analysis paralysis, give yourself a set amount of time to think things through logically, then make a decision based on your gut. This prevents excessive rumination, while still allowing room for intuitive insights. Another technique is to practice intuitive decision-making with low-stakes choices. Instead of overanalyzing what to eat for dinner or what route to take home, go with your first instinct. The more you trust yourself in small ways, the easier it becomes to rely on intuition in bigger decisions. Finally, recognize that intuition doesn't always provide immediate clarity. Sometimes, intuitive guidance unfolds over time, revealing itself in stages. The key is to remain open, patient, and receptive, rather than forcing a decision before it's ready to surface. By quieting mental noise and nurturing intuitive awareness, you gain access to a deeper, more effortless way of making decisions. Instead of being caught in a loop of overthinking, you become someone who moves through life with confidence, clarity, and an unshakable trust in your inner guidance.